My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And we're paranormal investigators who live in the most haunted city on Earth, Savannah, Georgia.
Whether we're in the studio
or out in the field,
we hunt for the stories and experiences where the veil feels thin.
Shout out to our Parajunkie family on Patreon. This show is only possible with you.
And remember, this is a judgment-free circle. Your experiences matter, your questions are welcome, and the weird is normal.
So cut the lights, turn the volume up, and journey with us into the most haunted city on Earth. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on Earth. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And today we are going to tell you about our Halloween festivities.
The Midnight Methods.
Midnight Methods, and boy, did the methods method.
There was a lot of method going on.
There was a lot of methoding.
Yes.
And that was a lot of methods that we just said. Anyways.
It was like crystal method.
No, there was none of that. It was very clean, wholesome fun.
It was clean, wholesome. It was crystal clear. So we could call them crystal methods.
God. Oh, my God. Patreon's going to be like, are we sure we're going to make them ambassadors for us?
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a... Oh, I'm not supposed to be talking, but whatever. We actually just became ambassadors this week, Chris.
Excellent.
Where
are we going?
So that means we get even more customer support.
Fantastic.
We get even more customer support, and we are actually in secret chats now.
Well, you can't tell people that we're in secret chats. They wouldn't be secret anymore.
I didn't know about these
I
secret chats.
didn't even know about it. He says we're in secret chats, and we didn't even know.
That's how secret
it was. Although now the cat's out of the bag.
Sorry,
they're going to pull our ambassadorship.
I know, right?
We're just going to become envoys.
Yes. Well,
low-level diplomats.
Low level, low lying, low vibrations, low density.
There's a lot of Halloween chatter.
Yes.
We had a pretty good Halloween. I dressed up like the Hat Man.
I dressed up like Lady Macbeth.
It's true. And Megan, my wife, was Mothman. So we were like two cryptids in the night.
Yes.
What we did learn was that if I take off my my Hat Man mask and put on her Mothman glasses, I look like Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
You do, actually. Yeah. That's very accurate. So it's two costumes in one.
Two costumes in one.
Yes. And so, we were going to tell you about everything that we found during the investigations, if you will. It was a loose investigation. We weren't...
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that it was an investigation as much as a demonstration.
Right.
But it did lead to a lot of information.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When we do these demonstrations, we're not expecting anything specific to come through. It's more so for people to be able to watch the technique and learn how they could do this on their own investigations or just watch people do spooky things, which there are a handful of people doing that. So I'll tell y'all after Chris kind of explains what Brian found, because I have not heard really anything about Brian.
Fascinating, because Brian was demonstrating automatic writing, and we'd actually had him do an automatic writing session here on the podcast. We've had him do one at a kind of a small seance in the main gallery of the museum. And here he was sort of demonstrating automatic writing, and fascinating because he was able to tap into at least three people, had some pretty heavily cathartic moments where deep emotional connections were made, where family members who had recently passed, even like within like a week passed, were communicating pretty clearly and evenly. And so there was this incredible back and forth with the spirits, and he was having some interesting interactions with some spirits that we were like, I think we're dealing with a kind of a roving spirit in the building anyway, so it was kind of ducking in and out. So every now and then he would be dealing with a spirit that he referred to as the bully. And so the bully would come back every now and then and move around. And that was very interesting. And we even had a moment, even before everything started, I was able to pull him through because we have new artifacts that he had not seen yet. And I wanted to show him the artifacts because we kind of trust him to give us an unofficial heads up if there's something that we need to address.
Sure.
And we did bring him around to a Jigoku, our possible Kitsune, to which he had a very adverse reaction to. And he definitely gave us kind of a pretty somber warning that there was nothing practical in our arsenal that we could use to protect ourselves, which I found very interesting, which kind of lends its way to we need to figure out more about this vessel, or we may have to get rid of it. That is a high possibility that it's just not worth having around because it poses a very specific threat. But right now, we're kind of still measuring out what will work and what doesn't work. But the problem with that is you're at threat then.
Yeah, and if you haven't watched the video, kind of mini doc that we made on the 2 attacks that happened, one with someone who came in as just a patron of the museum who had signed up to do a private investigation and whatnot. And so this person had no idea of what happened at JT previously, where JT got attacked by seemingly the same entity, being that they both were hit in between of their shoulder blades, which I don't know if you saw the TikTok comment. But
somebody did, yeah.
Yeah, somebody said that when Brian was mentioning the bully spirit, that their mom, I think it was, felt something sharp in the back in between her shoulder blades. So,
and Megan actually got it a few nights ago.
Yeah, it's very strange. The inkling we have is that it might be the Kitsune, and that's really...
It certainly makes sense in a lot of the clues that we've been given.
And so... But it has not been solidified, and it's difficult to pinpoint these sort of things when you're dealing with a lot of paranormal energy.
There's kind of this brewing storm happening because we've been given 3 possibilities, and in one case we believe that it's possible that a pretty potent medium came and sort of gave license to the shadow to form in a certain way, and now we're dealing with the aftermath of that. We also have the fact that the hole was involved. For those of you who don't know the hole, it is a trapdoor that is in the museum, but we've gotten a lot of messaging that kind of suggests that there's something under the building that really wants in the building. And during one of the more dramatic moments, the hole was a part of the whole story.
Right. And that hole has been giving us problems for years now, mind you.
Yeah, it's not. That's not a new thing.
Exactly. But that might have been a first sign
of
something.
Something was building, something was growing, so there was something happening.
And interestingly enough, so I found it fascinating that because I was in Emerald Dean's room the entire night, so I didn't watch anything that Brian did. I honestly didn't even really know what I did until after the fact.
Oh, that's true.
Because I was in the Estes Method, because that's what I was demonstrating. And so JT kind of filled me in on everything that came through, which was fascinating. But something that I found interesting that I was able to watch was that during after I do an extended time under the SCs, we'd allow, somebody who is there as a guest to be able to participate and try to do the SCs themselves. One, to give myself a break, but also so that people can try their hand in it. And so we had this one guest who sat down and immediately seemed to be connecting with Emerald Dean, who had been very quiet all evening through the SCs.
Yeah, it's been interesting because she has been getting quiet and mentioning... and I don't think that you even know this, that Emerald Dean has been mentioning on and off for at least the last couple of weeks that there is kind of a dark man or something in the room that keeps her from talking, or that she doesn't want to talk in front of him. Yeah. We've gotten several people who have a false start with her, and it's and then she's able to speak for a little while, and then it seems like a false start again.
Well, and that's interesting because she came through with saying that there was a scary man. That's what she kept calling him, is a scary man. And when I'd ask questions to be like, can you elaborate on who the scary man was? Because I wasn't sure if she was referring to somebody who was in the room or a human being in the room. Because, these are all people that
strangers.
They're strangers. So you never know. And so it's like, are you talking about somebody in the room? Or are you talking about an entity who's in the room? And she would not answer any questions. And then at one point, Charlotte butted in, but Charlotte had nothing productive to say, except that she wants to see the mountains again.
So Charlotte, interestingly, throughout the course of the evening, because we had set curator Justin on Charlotte with the ghost bell and the light bright, the illumination station. And there were several instances where it seemed like Charlotte was desperately trying to warn Justin of danger.
Interesting.
As a matter of fact, one time because the light bright was not going off at all. The illumination station, not at all. And it was kind of feeling like a bit of a dud. And I felt really bad because we put Justin like in this place where there's a bunch of people watching him and nothing's happening, right? Which is something that happens in ghost hunts. You can't guarantee that things are going to happen.
They're not on the payroll.
And he asks me, he says, Chris, do you think it's possible that she can't reach the light bright because it's outside the salt?
Oh.
And I said, oh, maybe. And so he takes it and he puts it underneath her chair inside the salt ring, and it starts going off like a disco ball.
Wow.
Lights up and down all around. And you're like, okay, that could be bouncing off of it. So we start moving things around. And at one point, Justin walks and stands right in front of Jigoku to get away, to make sure that it wasn't him in some way, like his phone or something setting it off. And when he did, Charlotte's bell was ding, 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 ding. And we were like, what are you trying to tell us? I don't understand. And then I was like, Justin, I think she's saying,
get away from
that. And as he stepped away from it and the bell stopped. Which
is insane to hear, because Charlotte is known to not
a friendly entity. Although I think she likes Justin.
Yeah.
I think she's got a little thing for him.
Well, that's nice for Justin.
That's good for Justin.
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
Terrible for other people, but
yeah. But just to hear that she is saying, like, get away from that is insane to hear.
Right. It's like the boogeyman being like, whoa, don't go in there.
That's the worst boogeyman.
What's that movie with Alicia Silverstone who falls in love with that blonde guy, and she stalks him and holds over the fact that they had relations, even though he was
teacher's pet. No,
something like that.
Something like that. It was Carrie Elway, right?
Yeah. Yes, Carrie Elway. That's it.
Yes.
Yep. And that's Justin Charlotte.
Probably.
Yeah.
At least in Charlotte's mind. But yeah. So on top of that, though, we had during a couple of the SC sessions, we had two very strong storylines going through, completely separate entities. And one of them, I don't know if he was attached to somebody in the building or if he's attached to the land, but his name was Pete. He was very vulgar, extremely vulgar, and it was the first SC session of the night, so that was fun to explain to people. Because JT can attest that, from what I gather, Pete was using a lot of words that do not come through on the radio, and I'm not going to...
The FCC would not allow it.
Exactly. And so, and what he alluded to, that I believe he was in the Navy. And that he was a bad he thinks he was a bad person and that he enjoyed hurting people. JT, do you have any other things that you remember of Pete at all? Okay.
Well, what's interesting is at around the same time, Brian's over doing automatic writing, and the kinds of things that he was getting, he definitely had a few times when he was getting outsider, a person who had just come in, like was not a spirit that was not attached to any person or any item, just followed the energy into the building that very night. And, keep in mind, it was Halloween night.
Sure.
And so having spirits around and just kind of running around, running amok, makes sense. It's fascinating. And something that a lot of people don't realize about Savannah, because this has been a while, Savannah used to be the Naval Hospital. That big gigantic building over on York Lane was a naval hospital. Lots of naval deaths, lots of naval insane cases.
Sure.
When they were renovating it, there's a lot of stories about hearing a single gunshot go off on the fourth floor. And when they were doing research, it turns out that a naval officer who had lost his mind took a gun from a guard and shot himself with it.
Do you happen to know what caliber that gun was?
It was, I have to imagine it was a 45, but it could have been a 38. It was either a 38 or a 45.
Because he talked about guns. He was very interested in guns. Okay. He mentioned something about a 40 caliber, but that also, it's...
So 40 would be a little too modern a cartridge for that hospital.
Sure.
I think.
And then
45 makes sense. .40 is just kind of like a fat 9mm.
Yeah, sure.
But I do think that, if he was talking about a gun and bullets, it's very likely. Because, we are a port town, and it's kind of interesting that we don't have a naval base.
Right.
We're the 4th largest port in the country. And it seems like this is the ideal place for a naval base. But it seems like in the 40s through the 60s, we did have a lot of naval activity here.
Yeah, he wanted to talk a lot about guns. He mentioned, I'm assuming what the question is what's your favorite type of gun?
Oh, interesting.
Brand, and he said Sig Sauer and Winchester.
Oh, so he is a modern soldier.
Yes.
He is possibly a Navy SEAL, because Navy SEALs do carry .40 caliber Sig Sauers. So that is an interesting thing to think that it would be modern. And we are right next to a base that has the Nighthawks, which is the Special Forces Black Hawk helicopter division, and they would be people who insert and extract even the Navy SEALs, any from DevGru, any of the Special Forces units. So it's interesting because, that is interesting because we don't think about modern ghosts. We talk about this all the time. We get into our heads that most ghosts are of another period.
Right.
But this sounds like you may be dealing with a very modern ghost if he's talking Sig Sauer, because Sig Sauer as a American sidearm is relatively new. It's relatively recent as far as, and it is almost exclusively Special Forces.
Yeah, it was just fascinating to hear, and he was just very gruff. It felt very much so like he was just like talking just to talk.
Sure.
And he got a little emotional at points when he was talking about, like, I was a bad person. I liked hurting these people, which
sure
is a heavy thing to say. But, that's why I say I don't know if he was not, I can't rule out he wasn't attached to somebody as, maybe a loved one or what have you. But it is Savannah. People drop off ghosts here all the time.
Absolutely.
There's a number of reasons why certain spirits would come and go. But the most interesting Estes session that came through was about one of the dolls here that I honestly did not know a lot of the history of in general, was Emily. And so Emily gave a whole backstory that was fascinating. So much so that people literally were running out of the room to try to find out what doll was talking, basically. So Emily alluded that her original owner was a little girl named Leah, and that Leah was sick, started getting sick around 2 years old, and she passed away in Savannah on vacation from a brain bleed. And that basically she was very happy to be here and that she liked being in this space. And when it was asked to describe her relationship to Leah, she said, "my girl," which made everybody think that this was a parental figure or somebody who was familial to this child. And then it continued on to the point where everybody realized that this was a doll, that this is an entity that was inside of a doll that was communicating. Because first off, when they were talking to her, she said doll very clearly. And she was giving very direct answers, like almost immediate direct answers when they were asking, when she was on vacation, was that here in Savannah, Georgia? And the answer was quite literally, yes, Savannah, Georgia, which is honestly unheard of in Estes. That is very serious evidence. And then when she was describing herself, she said that she had brown hair, pigtails, that she was in a blue dress, a smock. And then so that was the point where everybody ran out of the room and they started looking around the museum to try to find what doll it was. And they were like, "It's Emily." And so, like I said, I didn't really know anything about Emily up until that point. And Chris was like, "That's really interesting," because the story of Emily is kind of harrowing in
terrifying.
a lot of ways. Because she's known to make people sick, right?
She's been known to make people sick, but moreover, she kills family pets. Mm-hmm. She possibly responsible for fires. She's very threatening to the owners of Emily. But we don't know where Emily came from before so we only have 2 generations. We have a mother and a daughter. So the mother had it as a child and gave it to the daughter when the daughter was a child. And when the daughter was an adult, she sent it to us because she was so nervous having it around or having it still in her life. So it's one of those things where you're like, oh, these stories are fascinating, trying to figure out how it all pieces together. But from Emily's story, from the point of view of those 2 owners, she was kind of malicious and scary. But since she's been in the building, we've only had kind of very cursory sensations of that. She just seems very potent, I would say, but not necessarily maliciously minded. So it might have been a case of not getting along with that family,
right?
Not getting along with, something in that regard.
Well, and what it sounded like is that she was a spirit that was very attached to this one human. And when that human left, I don't know if that made the spirit angry or frustrated. Sure. Also, being that this doll didn't come from Savannah, right?
No, it came from Utah.
Exactly. So it's, maybe it was the spirit literally trying to get to Savannah to be with Leah in its own mind, if you will, of being near the owner that it wants to be with. And
there's no telling what path that doll took.
Right.
If it belonged to Leah in the 30s, 40s era, 50s even, and made its way through thrift sales and estate sales and family sending it to family members,
right?
And, after the passing of a child, what do you do with the toys and where do they go? Do you set up your little altar shrine in the house, which oftentimes happens? Or do you pack it away and give it away? And so there's a lot of questions because there's the path of an object from its place of origin to its place of rest. Fascinating and endless. You could talk about it was belonged to a girl who passed away, and then her sister's child came in, saw the doll, and fell in love with it, and it felt like the right thing to do to give it to her, and so it starts moving all around.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the fascinating part. But it blows my mind to hear that there is some type of connection between this doll and Savannah in some capacity, at least from what it's telling us.
Sure. And it's possible too. It gets so convoluted when you start talking about spiritual connection, because it's possible that there is just a strand of a web that is out there, and it is this spirit that was attached to this girl who passed away, and then intercepted comes this other entity that gloms onto that strand, right? Because it's a very sensitive web, and it's also very sticky. So oftentimes spirits will start to behave in certain patterns, start to assume certain characteristics based on the influence of other spiritual entities around it. So if there's this powerful force that is like, I'm seeking out my owner, my love, my child, my Leah, and then enter this spirit that is just kind of open, just kind of, it was malicious in the last place because it didn't have any home. It was just lashing out. And then it finds this thing to hold on to. It could just create a surgency.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, and that might be why we can feel the energy off of her, that she has the propensity to do mean and awful things, but maybe she's satisfied now, and that's why she's not acting up and she's not being
or there are
aggressive.
Bigger, badder spirits here
that was my
keeping
second
it in line.
Guess. Right, because if Charlotte's intimidated by something, you got to imagine.
You got to imagine there's something kind of taking on a bully role.
Exactly,
the bully of the building. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Charlotte kept mentioning that she missed the mountains, and we were like, Emeraldine, I don't think you're from the mountains.
Right. Nothing suggests. As a matter of fact, we got Emeraldine from Oklahoma.
Right.
Very flat area of Oklahoma, the Dust Bowl kind of area.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know what mountains Emeraldine, but we don't know Emeraldine's full story.
Sure.
We only know the story that we've gotten since her time in Oklahoma.
Right.
So that becomes, again, a question. But we do know that Charlotte
is from the mountains.
Is from the mountains and had, an old mountain witch that used to come and kind of It's interesting because there was a time apparently when this old mountain witch would come in and kind of make Charlotte behave through constant visits. And it's been a long time since Charlotte has gotten a visit from the old mountain witch who was supposed to keep her in line.
Yeah. And this woman who was blessing all these items was a complete, almost a ghost of herself, if you will, because she was only known as Minnie.
Right.
Nobody knew her last name. Nobody knew if that was even her real name, but she only went by Minnie.
Just up in the cabin on the side of the road.
Well, and that's what Charlotte mentioned, because we were like trying to pry. We're like, what mountains are you from? Like, what state? And Charlotte would not indulge. And so she was like, I want to go back to my mountain house. And we're like, well, where can we find your cabin? Because that's what she called it. And she's like, you can see it from the road. And which... that makes a lot of sense, because in that area, being that I'm very familiar with the area now, most of the houses you can see in some capacity from the main road, unless they're like really tucked into a holler or something.
Right. And I always had like this image in my head of Minnie walking into the Micaville outpost, like walking down from her house. So then that might just be my own storytelling brain.
But if that's the case, that would make a lot of sense,
it would
because
make a lot of sense.
The Micaville outpost was literally at the end of the Micaville Loop, which is just one road that winds through the mountains up into Busick, which is up at the base of Mount Mitchell. So if she was going to walk, if you will, to Micaville outpost, she would have had to live in a very select few of houses that were in that area. And all of those you can see from the road. So being that, I think Charlotte might be a little homesick in some capacities, which wouldn't be unheard of for some entities. Some entities, they find a lot of identity in the areas that they inhabit. Also, Charlotte was the biggest and baddest doll in Micaville, and so maybe that is frustrating her in some capacity, that she is not the biggest and baddest doll.
Yeah, we gave her a dead bell, and she uses it with ridiculously active. Yeah, she loves her dead bell.
Yeah, and honestly, that's for the best.
Yes.
Let Charlotte
give her an outlet.
Give her outlet. Let her, have fun, enjoy herself, so that she
interact without poking people in the eye.
Without poking people in the eye, causing them to go to the ER. Destroying people's phones, all sorts of things, because when Charlotte gets bored, she gets destructive.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and she has been known on so many occasions to disrupt electronics in irreparable ways.
Yes, in weird, irreparable ways, too. It's like changing the voice of Siri to the point at which it can never be recovered, nor is it a voice that you can program.
Right.
So it was like, making sounds like that. It's like, call from that. And you're like, what the what? Why? Why is your phone talking like that? Why is it talking like it had its larynx removed from smoking too much?
Literally.
It was very weird.
Yeah. Or sending Justin Facebook messages.
Well, I think that Justin just, endeared himself to her, and she's like sliding into his DMs. So
literally slid into his DMs. That one was one of the wildest encounters of Charlotte interacting through electronics I think I've heard.
Right. Because, again, and a lot of people mistake a spirit's ability to use electronic means to communicate with its understanding, like modern electronics. It's not. It is that their will and how the electronics work and transmit and receive messages cross somehow in some way that we don't understand. So it's not like a ghost is up on Facebook or understands what Facebook is. It's that its attempt to communicate finds likely channels to communicate. Classically, ever since the invention of the telephone, people would get these dead calls. They get calls from dead people, calls from family members and things like that. And I can't tell you how many chilling stories there are of people answering the phone only to have the voice of somebody that they loved who had passed come through the receiver. And it's like, that's so creepy. And it's like, but it's not, because they picked up the phone and dialed the phone. It's because their desire to communicate with you took on all the electronic properties necessary, all the electrical avenues necessary. It's the same thing with like the spirit boxes that we use, the Ovulus and the word banks. People are like, so is the ghost like pulling up a list of words and flipping through it and trying to pick it out? It's like, I don't think that's how it works. I think that it is all about these intentions of the spirits trying to communicate that kind of triggers a word association that we don't understand, that is not programmed into the electronics necessarily, but does seem to come up. One of the interesting things is Megan is always trying to get the spirit chat to say her name. So she's always like, hey, say my name, say Megan, say my name. And there was a day when it was like, Mustard Jones. And her last name is Jones. So it was like, it was like Mustard something Jones, Mustard Merriweather Jones or Mustard something Jones. But it was like these two M words and then Jones. And we're like, oh, you know what? We might be too hard on these ghosts.
Right. They're trying their best.
It's like, please. Because Justin also has never come up on the spirit chat. He usually gets comedian or jerk. Those are the two things that he gets, comedian or jerk. And we kind of learned that that's him.
Yeah.
When the boxes are saying that, they're because sometimes it's like, jerk, not here. It's like things like that here. When he's not there. And you're like, oh, yeah, no, he's not here. But it does sometimes it will say things like just in time or just in case. And you're like, I think they're trying to say your name. I think it's coming up, but they're having a hard time penetrating the electric, the whatever matrix that keeps it from being direct communication. Unfortunately, they say my name all the damn time.
They love saying Chris.
It is annoying as all get out. I think the other day it said something like Chris skinned alive. And I'm like, no, none of that. No. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, even the first time we did an investigation in the museum, when you weren't there, it was like, where's Chris?
Yeah, right.
And then it was like, spent too much money.
Yeah, spent too much money comes up a lot.
Yes.
And I will admit, yes, but the ghosts don't need to call me out on that. I mean, come on.
Right.
We're trying to do something here. It costs money.
They're like, too much money.
Too much money.
I will say, though, interesting that kind of concept of spirits coming through and hearing, getting calls from deceased loved ones. It was so interesting because the day after Halloween, Andrea Perrin came to the museum and was signing books and meeting people and all that. And so we were just sitting there, and I forget how it came up, but she was talking about how on her phone one time, after somebody passed that she loved, who was like a really dear friend of hers, who apparently she was a devout atheist, did not believe that once you die, it's just a blip, you just cease to exist. And she gets a call that's from a number that is only zeros. And she answers the call, and she swears that it was this man's voice. And he says, Andrea, you were right.
You were right. That was kind of a chilling.
That was a chilling story, but it's like that's not the first time that people have had that experience.
Absolutely not.
But it's just interesting that it comes up because I've never had that experience, but it's like
I'll
I can
never
only
forget
imagine.
They used to do these reenactment shows with ghosts where they. I'm not sure it was a haunting, which was a show that used to do all these reenactments. But there was one, and it will always haunt me because of how they presented it. Because the guy was telling his story, and he was telling a story about how his father had passed, and it was very unresolved between him and his father. And he was working in his garage, trying to fix, and his radio would just fade in and out. It was kind of like doing the spirit box thing, where it was like going up and down, and he couldn't get it to stop scanning the radio, and the words that it always stopped on in, the DJ talking songs and stuff, it would repeat the same phrase over and over and over again. And the phrase was, I know why I died.
Oh.
And it was over and over again. And just that notion was really haunting. And the way they played it out was, of course, that the son had to kind of reconcile with the fact that his father and him didn't have the best relationship, and that in his absence, of course, there was all this animosity and all this anger and all this, and it drove him to drink and it drove him to die. And I was like, that's so bizarre. But I remember thinking, and this was before like spirit boxes and spirit radios were really a very highly popular or known about or discussed thing. Fringe people knew about them. This was around the time that you just turned the TV on to the channel that doesn't receive, and you just look at the snow, and you're just looking for evidence. As a matter of fact, if you ever watch, I think it's a Michael Keaton movie called White Noise. White Noise is like before a lot of the ITC tech came about. It's about like looking for electronic voice phenomenon and looking at the snow of TV to see faces and see information.
So that leads me to ask, because they're one of the little tiny room that used to be the confession booth. Y'all had the basically it's a spirit box, but a TV version.
Yeah, we did have the TV on.
Did anybody have anything interesting?
Many things.
Really?
Many things. As a matter of fact, it was funny because we were kind of like following it around. I would go into like the automatic writing area, and he's like going, "There's a J name here, but I can't make it out. There's something going on." But everybody's seeing the J, and they see him writing the J. A couple was in the Savannah room listening to the Portal radio, which is a much more focused. It's not, you don't hear all the scanning. It's just the highlights coming through, and they heard Jake, and they're like Jake, and so they're like, "Oh, Jake," and then. For some reason, they were like, they got TV. And so like Jake TV. And they're like, oh, there's a TV. We should go there. So they go in, they sit down at the TV, and it says Jake again. And it's like, Jake. And there was like, oh, and then it said, follow me.
Oh.
And they were sitting, so they're sitting in the confessional booth, and the confessional booth is close to our equipment table, and they look over the equipment table, and there's blinking on one of the EMF readers. The EMF reader's just sitting on the table, lighting up.
Oh my gosh!
And it was like, "Follow me," and they were like, "I guess we should follow that." So they go over to that, and they're overhearing you in the, or whoever was doing the Estes Method at the time, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm almost positive that Jake made us walk all the way up to this place right here just to stand here and listen." And I was like, "That's fascinating." And then I was there when. Patrick Young, a parajunkie, was in there asking the clown's name, and it said Joe. Crystal clear Joe. And it's like, okay. And then it wouldn't stop saying Joe. It said Joe like another 10 times.
It's like, just to be clear.
Joe, listen, Joe. And they were like, well, what's her name? Joe. It's like, no, what's this doll's name? Joe. And then I think there was a woman who got Emily, followed quickly by Steve, then Chris. And Steve and Chris, both people in the general area, and then Mike. And it started asking for Mike a lot, and I didn't think about Michael. It didn't occur to me that there was a Michael, that I knew in the building. And interesting, even more so interesting. Let's move on, because last night we had a tour come through. The trolley tour came through, and a woman went into that booth, and it didn't have the TV there. She was trying to get the name of the doll, and she came out and she's like, look, I got to know what the name of the doll is. And it's like, well, the experiment is actually, we're trying to see what names are coming out. And we kind of we very closely landed on Elizabeth. And Joe is now the strong contender for the clown, because we've gotten Joe a couple of times before, but now we had the spirit box incident.
Sure.
So I was like, she's like, well, I feel like it was really insistent. It was really pushy and trying to get me to say its name. I was like, well, what was the name? And she said, Emily. And I was like, Emily. And she's like, yeah. And she's kind of like really pushy right now. She's missing somebody. She's missing her owner. She's separated from her owner. Do you know anything about this doll? And I was like, actually, I don't know about the doll in the room, but you were sitting not 3 feet away from another doll from Emily,
who is missing her owner desperately, apparently.
Yeah. As near as we can tell.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to watch all these things kind of line up.
Right.
Because we get little pieces of stories, and then they start to like, oh, they're supporting each other almost.
Well, and it's interesting too, because that woman who was on the trolley would have had no idea what came
not
through
at all. Absolutely.
in the
She was from Missouri.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah.
Right.
It's not like she was paying attention to any of this.
Right. And I don't think even Patrick was giving the tour, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
Patrick was giving the tour. Patrick didn't know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't tell anybody about what came through that night until the next day.
Right.
But I don't think even Patrick heard it the next day. So it wouldn't have been like anybody on the tour would have gotten that information. So that's fascinating. I guess Emily really wants to see Leah, which is sad in a lot of ways, but also...
Unless Leah's here.
Maybe she found...
It's very hard to hang on. I think I have something for the class.
Something to present.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, it's always fascinating because every time we do any sort of investigating, whether it's official in any capacity or non-official, we are always finding new information about so many different things. And not always is it about the objects, because the building is extremely haunted as well, which does add to the difficulty of sometimes trying to pinpoint who we're talking to or where they're coming from. Because this area in general has a lot of death. We're not like you could throw a football and hit the tiny little Jewish cemetery that's
right.
literally up the hill. Yeah, so it's like you have things like that. This whole area used to be a neighborhood. And so people could be coming from that. There was a battle that was fought in this area. And so it's a Mod Podge of things.
So one of the interesting things that happened yesterday was a woman came in who was with the woman who bought Jeb originally.
Oh.
Who found Jeb in a store and bought him. Mm-hmm. Look at this boy and how different he looks. Does he not look like
That's
a different
shockingly
being entirely?
Different.
I mean, now he looks like a refugee versus what this doll looked like when we first got him.
He's like smiling.
He's smiling. Yes, he's smiling.
He looks happy. Jeb looks distraught now.
Yeah, now it looks like a chain smoker.
He does. He really does.
Look, too, that his clothes fit him.
Oh.
Do you see how his clothes fit him?
Right.
And right now, they're just like hanging off of him. It's so weird.
It's very bizarre because Jeb has morphed in the relatively short time that he's been here.
Even from the picture that we took like when he first got here to today, he looks so different. But I was shocked when I saw it.
Life in his eyes.
Right.
And now he looks soulless. Not that he's not haunted anymore. Chris is right. He looks like he has gone to war.
Right.
It's like
he has the 30-yard stare now. And he looks like he's a little more maliciously intent.
Yes.
And it's really strange because we can't get him to stand up straight anymore.
Yeah, he kind of slouches
he now,
forward.
Like, has this lean forward like he's coming at you.
Like menacing. Yeah, and which is so strange. And Jeb is such an odd thing in this whole space because Jeb never comes through. Ever. He's just kind of this presence.
People see him move a lot.
Really?
And apparently, even in this instance where this woman bought him, the woman witnessed what looked like Jeb reaching out to hug the woman.
Oh.
And she has pictures of Jeb on the woman's shoulder, and his head is like to its side.
Show it one more time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Jeb also all the dogs hate Jeb a lot. So that is Jeb now, or that it was Jeb when he was bought, and Jeb now is disturbing.
Yeah, let me get a...
Like, he looks like a pleasant little boy in this photo.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Anybody who's spent time in front of Jeb knows that this is not the Jeb that we know.
No.
Our Jeb has been to war.
He's been to war.
Yeah.
He's jaded by life.
It's actually kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just, Jeb has always really upset every dog. And so, like our Silky Terrier, who's very perceptive to spirits, we had to remove Jeb from this room at one point because I forget why Jeb was in here at one point.
Oh, that's right. We had to put him back here. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Jeb in here, and we literally had to take Jeb out of the room because she would not relent from freaking out about him. And so, just fascinating. All sorts of stuff that went on. Being that it was Halloween, so to be expected in some capacities.
It was a solid Halloween event.
It was. And I know that there will be more of those in the future. So if that's something that interests you and you'll possibly be in the Savannah general area any time in the near future year or so, definitely make sure to follow the museum at least on their socials, so that way
we will post our events on all our socials.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I know we've had quite a few parajunkies who have come through to do it, and they all have had their own experiences.
This weekend was a good parajunkie weekend. We met a few really wonderful parajunkies come through, and always look forward to seeing more.
Absolutely. But that's all we have for you today, y'all. So thank you so much for listening to our debrief, if you will. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you had a wonderful Halloween wherever you're listening to this. And my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.